Let's get started. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to another live video on YouTube. This should be an entertaining one. I'm going to cover a lot of the things I'll be talking about in my book. It's not released yet, so depending on when you watch this video, you're watching it live, if you're watching it live, or if you're watching it on the replay. But people have been asking me about it, and I wanted to give a deeper preview about what's going on in the book, why I'm making it, and answer the three biggest questions that people have. So let's get into it. I'll keep my eye on chat, but I want to get through all this, so I will do my best to remain focused. Look at that, Garizono Chimpo. Arturo is back, and Annette, nice to see you there in Wisconsin. All right, let's get started. This should be an entertaining one. As usual, we're going to be talking about fluency, but I want to deal with the three main questions, and these are really types of questions I get from learners. So they are about the three different kind of phases where people are learning, or the three main struggles people have, and we're going to talk about those in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about how people become fluent and the kinds of things that people think they need in order to become fluent. So let's just go through this quick list. When I ask people about what they think they need to become fluent, let's see, maybe blue is better for this. So the first one is obviously speaking. You need to speak a lot. And again, these are the things that people think they need to become fluent. So you need to speak a lot. Number two is you need maybe some kind of immersion. So immersion meaning you live around native speakers, or maybe even live in an English-speaking country, or you're married to a native speaker, or you have a parent who is a native speaker, or a child who is a native speaker, all of those things. So any of that kind of stuff would fall under immersion. Number three, what else? Can you think of some other things that people might need to have in order to speak fluently? Let's say we're going to talk about like a large vocabulary. Anything else? If you think I'm missing anything, these are the main things that people think they need. So when I talk about how I help people, or when people talk about like what they're looking for in lessons, so they're usually talking about something that's going to give them some kind of speaking, some kind of immersion, or at least having a large vocabulary. So they know a lot of vocabulary, they can understand things, but maybe they still lack fluency. So what we're going to talk about in this video, I could go on, there are other things people think they need, but what I'm really talking about here are the kinds of things or the kinds of reasons where people think they're not fluent because they don't have one of these. So people might say, I'm not fluent because I don't speak enough. Whatever that is, like they think there's, like maybe they've spoken a little bit, or maybe they don't speak at all, so they're unable to speak, and that's why they can't get fluent. Or they don't have some kind of immersion, they don't have native speakers around them, something like that, or they don't know enough words. So these are the typical kinds of things that people talk about that stop them from becoming fluent. Now I want to address these things right at the beginning, because the main thing I teach and the main focus of the book, of course we get a fire truck or whatever is coming over here as usual, but the main focus of the book is saying that these things are actually not necessary. They're certainly nice if you have them, but lots of people try to speak every day. They have opportunities to speak, like even me living here in Japan. I know quite a few foreigners who've been living in Japan longer than I have, and they still don't speak Japanese very well. I also know lots of people who live in the United States or other English-speaking countries, and they still don't speak. In fact, that's a lot of the people I help. So people who live in the United States and they don't actually communicate very well, even though they live in the United States, so they've got that immersion. They could even be married. Actually, I have quite a few people who I help. They're married to people and they still can't speak. So they're married to an English speaker, a native English speaker, and they still can't speak fluently. So again, these are just the things that people think they need, but even the people who have these things still struggle to speak. So what's the deeper issue here? What's actually missing? What's the real problem? Same thing here with having a large vocabulary. I know people who know a lot of English, but they still struggle to speak. So that's a lot of people, even for watching my videos, especially they think they need to know more words, or they think they're unable to speak fluently because they just don't know enough vocabulary. But what we're going to talk about in this video is how these things, it's not speaking, it's not immersion, not having a large vocabulary, those are things that are not required. They're certainly nice if you have them. I wouldn't tell you to stop speaking or to not live around natives if you can. They are certainly nice to have, but these are not the things that are stopping you from speaking. So if you can live around native speakers and still not speak, if you can be married to a native speaker for years and still not speak, if you can live around English speakers for years and still not speak, or have a large vocabulary and still not speak, what's the actual problem? Can anyone know? Any of my long time followers, people who will be watching my videos for a while, what is the thing people are really struggling with? So I want you to picture this situation. You have a person here, this is the English learner, and they have some opportunity to speak with someone else, but either they are too shy, or maybe they try to speak but they still make mistakes. What's the real problem here? What's the issue? So they could be married to a native, they could know a lot of English, they could be immersed in the language, they could be living in the United States or Canada or England or whatever. So what's the real problem? Does anybody know? Anyone want to put a guess here? Yes, they don't know the meaning well of a word. Yep, that's part of it. I'm looking for something deeper. One word. So see if people know what I'm aiming at here. What do you mean with immersion? So Annette, like you live in Wisconsin, so you are immersed around native English speakers, presumably, unless they have you in a box or a jail and you only get to speak German or whatever. But immersion just means like when you, like I take something like this water, or if I have like a bowl of water, something like that, I'm going to put that down in my hand, and if this is all surrounded by water, my marker is immersed in water. So to emerge, or excuse me, like immersion, this just means that something is like surrounding that thing completely. So Rolla, yes, the answer is actually doubt. So the thing that really stops people, even when you have opportunities to speak, even when you are married to native English speakers, even when you know a lot of words, you still have some kind of doubt that's actually stopping you from speaking. So the whole point of this video and the whole point of my book is to explain how you can get fluent before you speak. That way you actually feel confident and fluent and you're ready and you're excited to speak even before you say another word. Okay, that's the basic idea. So we're going to talk about that in this video, but I wanted to lay this foundation to, number one, talk about the things that people think they need, but they actually don't. Again, these are nice things to have. Like if I had to choose, I would rather live around native speakers than not live around native speakers. But it's certainly not necessary, and a lot of people who do live around natives still can't speak. So living around natives, immersion is not the guaranteed key to fluency. But if you can eliminate any doubt you have, and there are 3 causes of this doubt that I've found, so if you can eliminate these causes of doubt, that's what actually lets you speak. Okay, so the core idea is that doubt is the thing that really stops people from speaking. It's not having like some kind of immersive lessons or something like that. And I get into a lot more detail about why those things don't actually work as well as people think they do. But just for this video, I wanted to give a preview and talk about the big picture of the book. All right, so let's talk about the 3 questions that people have most frequently. You've probably seen these, especially if you've been watching these videos for a while. The first question, so now we're going to talk about these. So these are, again, not the, it's not like this exact wording all the time. These are 3 kinds of questions I get. So number 1 is, why do I understand So the first question, the most common question I get from learners, and this is, we're going to kind of structure this video as beginning with people who might have more trouble understanding me. So some people really understand everything I say, which is great, but it doesn't necessarily make you a fluent speaker. So number one, why do I understand you but do not understand native? So this is a really common question people get, and I'm going to give you this simple, basic answer for this. Now, if you can imagine, kind of like, I'm going to draw my little rainbow. It's supposed to be a rainbow image. I only have a few different colors, unfortunately. I don't want to mix these up, but let's just imagine this is a rainbow over here. Put some black in there. Kind of funny looking rainbow. So usually what happens, especially in a video like this, is you are getting, by listening to this video and understanding this video, you are getting a small portion of the language. You're not getting the full spectrum of the language, you are just getting a small portion of it. And what I mean by that is you're listening to slow speech, so I'm being extra clear and pronouncing things, enunciating things clearly. Even if I still blend the sounds of my words together, you're still hearing nice, clear, easy to understand English, okay? So I'm speaking clearly, I'm speaking a little bit more slowly than I normally would, and I'm also not using a lot of slang and idioms and expressions and other things like that, okay? So this is the basic reason why you would understand me but still have trouble with all of this other stuff over here. So you could understand me, let's say you have a private teacher. Some people pay for private lessons where they have a particular coach that they're speaking with. And when people are talking about, you know, they're like having questions with like a native speaker, usually it's just an English teacher, you might be getting the same kind of speech. It's clear speech. People want to be understood because that's the point of the lesson. The point is to actually help you understand. But when you get into the real world, you're exposed to all of this other stuff, and so it's going to be faster, less clear. People mumble when they speak. They're using lots of slang and idioms or movie quotes or references from popular culture, that kind of thing. So if you're only listening to this, if this is the only kind of English you get, if you listen to me and think, wow, I'm listening to Drew, I understand even everything he's saying right now, can you understand all this? Do you understand everything you hear in movies and TV shows, and if it's fast or even if it's not very clear or people are using cultural references? Do you understand all that? If you do, fantastic. You got through that kind of first level of doubt, all right? So being able to understand things, often the problem is that people are just not exposed to the whole range or the whole spectrum of the language. It's like getting a rainbow and you only get one or two colors of it rather than the whole thing. So my not so pretty rainbow, but you can imagine what that would look like. We've got yellow and green and purple and blue and all of these colors here. So we've got this over here, but we're missing all these things. So Annette says, why do I understand you, but what, sorry. So if the question is just making this idea clear, when you're listening to me right now, I'm speaking slowly, clearly, and not using a lot of difficult English, meaning I'm not using slang or idioms and things like that. So I'm using a specific narrow range of English when I'm teaching people in a lesson like this. Now, there are some times when I'm teaching specific vocabulary, which I will do in this video, but the more important thing is that, just so you understand, being able to listen to and understand a lesson like this is different from being able to understand the whole range of English, okay? So you can understand me, or maybe you can't even understand everything I'm saying, that's okay. But for the people who can understand me, and maybe they still have trouble understanding this wider range of English, all the slang and idioms and faster speech and different levels of politeness and all of those things that come with learning the real language. That's the reason people will be asking me this question. Okay, so the first level of things, when we're talking about the doubts that people have, it's usually because they're just not exposed to that kind of English. All right, that's the basic reason. So you might know some of the English, and maybe you can understand everything I say, which is great, but you might still struggle with a lot of other things over here. Now, next we'll talk about the people who can understand everything, even that native speakers are talking about, and we'll talk about that next level of doubt. But let me know if this doesn't make sense. Hopefully people get this idea. This is very important. So anybody asking, why do I understand you, or why do I understand English teachers, but I still struggle to understand natives? This is the reason. Okay, so typically when people are learning, they get a small, narrow, we might call this a band or part of the spectrum here. So only this part of it, like listening to radio signals where you can only hear some channels, but you can't hear all of the others. So if you're not exposed to that and teachers aren't helping you learn that language, then of course it will be more difficult for you to understand native speakers. All right. Now, before we go to the next question, or I'll see if anybody has any questions about this. Does this make sense? Let me know if this idea makes sense. So anybody who's wondering why I can understand you, but I can't understand natives, is that clear for you now? Let me know. I'm going to draw at the bottom of this before I erase it. At the beginning of this video, I talked about the different things that people assume they need. So they need to speak or live with native speakers or have a boyfriend or girlfriend or be married or whatever. Maybe they don't know enough words. Those are the reasons they're not speaking. But here we see the real problem is just doubt. And so this is one part of that. So I'm going to draw my little typical chart down here about the kind of doubt you experience when you're trying to speak and you can't. So the first part of that is actually just making sure you can understand or you know the vocabulary. Because if people are using all of this vocabulary down here, slang and idioms, and you just don't know what that means, then of course you're going to have trouble in conversations. Okay? So if we're going from 0, this is like having very little or you don't understand. Let's see, can't read the word after the word but. So but not natives. So not natives. So why do I understand you but not natives? I'm sorry for my poor penmanship. I'm trying to write quickly here, but I will write it more clearly. I will take more time. So why do I understand you? And this could mean, why do I understand English teachers in general or people who are trying to help me learn, like my private coaches or whatever, but not understand natives, okay? So if you're only learning this little band, only this little part of the language, but not the rest of it, then that's why you're going to have trouble understanding people, okay? So you have to be exposed to the whole thing to eliminate any doubt about understanding things, okay? Creative says, where can I learn new verbs? All over the place. Strong verbs. I don't know what's a strong verb. You have to just listen to natives at the same place everybody else learns them. You learn them from all over. Or you watch people doing particular things. Like if I'm trying to learn verbs for certain sports or verbs for activities, I would watch those activities and learn those verbs. All right. So you might have different things for a sport rather than, I don't know, ballet or gardening or something like that. So Novel says, so now if I understand you, how I need to understand everyone more than I learn or less. So just talking about this specific thing, if you're only listening to English teachers, that's part of the problem, okay? So you need to be making sure you're listening to the whole spectrum, and this doesn't mean knowing the whole language. I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying you need to know every word. The point is that if you're only listening to this kind of English, like really slow English or really clear English, or you're just getting only some very easy to understand examples, like you could get actually lots of examples of conversational English, but if it's all clearly spoken, then that's not going to help you or prepare you for conversations when people say things that are different or they speak less clearly. Lots of reasons why it might be more difficult for you. So the point is not just to only learn this, and obviously this language is useful, but we want to understand these other things here. So this other quick question about like how to lose an accent. So if you're only listening to English teachers, then you're going to probably keep an accent, or you will try to sound like a slow, clear speaker rather than different natives. So if I'm trying to develop an accent in Japanese, like a particular way of speaking, or the same thing for people in English, you need to listen to a variety of different speakers. That's how you get the accent. So you don't just listen to one clear speaker, you need to listen to a bunch of different people. You need this range, this wide range of different things. That's what's going to get you fluent. So Wendy is also asking, how do I improve my listening? This is how you do it. So one way we train this, like what we do in Fluent for Life, is we begin with people understanding this kind of narrower, easier band of English, but then we also give you the same examples in faster speech or with more difficult accents. So you need to train yourself systematically as you go through these things. Okay, so it's not just listening to clear speakers, you need to get the whole picture. And again, this doesn't mean the entire language, it just means different kinds of speech, like the real different examples, the things you might hear in an everyday conversation or in a movie or the radio or music or whatever. So when people say like, how do I understand you, but I can't understand books or movies or radio or whatever, this is the reason. You're just not prepared because you haven't been exposed to that, and it's probably not systematic. So some people, they try to watch movies in English or TV shows in English, but they have a lot of trouble understanding the content. So there's maybe just too much of it coming at the same time. You might have a sentence with 3 jokes and some sarcasm and some cultural references or something like that, but you might not understand all of it. So that's how you do it. So, well, again, we're going to be talking about the 2 other questions in just a moment, but I want to make sure everybody understands this point. It's a simple idea, but a lot of people are still confused about, wait a minute, like I can understand what this person, what Drew is saying or some other teacher, but why am I not understanding others? It's because you're just not getting that range of the language. You're only getting a small part of the rainbow up here. All right, let me go through these last questions over here, see if I missed anything. Hamza says, if I read and I surround myself with English, then I can be fluent in English. Not necessarily. Surrounding yourself with English, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is not the key to fluency, because lots of people are surrounded by English all the time and they still can't speak. Okay, so I want you to kind of follow me through. This is why I'm writing this book, because I want to lay this all out, and the purpose of this video is just to go through that, because people keep asking me, when is the book coming out and what's in it and all of this information. So I thought I would just make a video explaining this, and that way people don't have to wait for it to come out. They can just start using this information immediately. Let's see, Marcella says, is there any place in the US you have trouble understanding the people you were saying, considering you were native? In general, I don't have any trouble understanding people, but they might use a phrase or vocabulary that, like, they might describe something. So in different places in the United States, you might have like soda or Coke or pop. So these are all different things that could mean the exact same thing. All right, so we've got like if I go to one part of the United States, is my bad picture of United States. Yeah, put Florida in there too. So they've got like soda up here, and then you got soda pop or Coke or something like that. But in general, the people are using the same kind of language. So there might be some things that are different or unique to a particular area, and people will speak differently. I tell the story sometimes about my. There was like a friend of my family. We went to their house for dinner sometimes, and she had a southern accent. So she was, I think, from Georgia. And after dinner, she said, "Y'all want some pie? Y'all want some pie? Y'all want some pie?" And if you hear that, that's again an example of something down here, rather than the way an English teacher, a clear speaker, "Y'all want some pie?" So basically, she said, "Y'all." So like y'all, like you all, y'all want some pie. So this is a more natural way of expressing do you want. So typically, like in an English lesson, you might hear, do you want something? Do you want something? But a regular, like in everyday English, people might just usually start the conversation or the question with you. You want some pie? You want a drink? All right, or even just want some pie? They might not even say you, all right? But again, this is the typical kind of thing where the speech is going to be different and the pronunciation might be different and it might be faster or blurred or something. So if you are not exposed to this kind of language also, if you only hear clear speakers, but you don't hear lots of unclear speakers or different accents or whatever, then it's going to be more difficult for you to understand and become a confident speaker. Does that make sense? So the foundation of this is just getting that input and then making sure you understand it, and we'll get to that part next. But that's the general idea here of going from 0% understanding to understanding something very well and being able to use it. So another thing I'll mention right here at the beginning or near the beginning of this video is that we actually have different levels of understanding. So when people say, hey, I can understand what Drew's saying, but you don't understand what natives are saying, even if they say the same thing. So I could say something and a native might say the exact same thing, but they might express it differently. They would have like a different accent or something. Maybe they're mumbling or speaking faster. You can understand me. So you have this level of understanding. This is what I call awareness, where you can hear something, and I talk more about this in the book about the different levels of understanding, but the point is that understanding me doesn't make you a fluent speaker, okay? You've probably seen videos on YouTube. It's like, if you understand this vocabulary, your English is amazing. Like, they say your English is amazing or you're fluent or whatever. It's not true. Understanding something doesn't give you the ability to use it. It's a different skill. So the point is here, you can have some level of understanding, and then you also have some doubt remaining. So you have to remove all of the doubt to become able to use English confidently and fluently. All right? But the good news is that you don't have to speak or live in an English-speaking environment in order to do this. The point is just to make sure you remove the doubt. So that's the focus of the book and what we're talking about in this video. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, we're getting quite a few little comments here. I want to go through these quickly, make sure. Let's see. So how to understand real conversation, how to practice that. So we're going to get to that in just a second. But good question. Marceliana says, hello, nice to see you there. And we got some, looks like Chinese, I can't read. Hi, sir, I purchased your course. How may I ask how I should study the course to maximize and learning experience? I just need to review it again and again. I need to memorize everything in the course instead. I really appreciate if you would answer my question. So if you're talking about Fluent for Life, the basic idea is that you're going to learn things in different ways because we really want to make sure you have no doubt about the vocabulary. So if you follow the instructions, there is a daily schedule where you will start with one lesson, and then you will watch it and then listen to it the next day and then read it and then go on to the next lesson, because we want to give you naturally varied review. I'll talk about that a little bit more in this video, but just to answer that question quickly about using the program. So any program that we might have, or even if you get a program from any place, you really want to try to get as much naturally varied review as possible. So watch a video, then listen to it, then try writing something from the video. And then even if you can find additional information about things, like if I'm watching an English lesson about growing roses, I should also go to YouTube and watch some videos about growing roses too, because that's going to eliminate a lot of doubt I have about vocabulary or how to use things or being able to understand different speakers. All right, so the point is to eliminate any doubt you have, and the doubt is really what's guiding you. So if you feel confident about understanding something, but maybe you're not sure about some grammar or something like that, that's the particular thing you want to focus on. And then you can always send us any questions you have via email or just comment in the system, and we'll be right there to help. All right, Annette says, I'm so excited to read the book, glad to hear it. And Pepe says, I have difficult responding and reasoning at the same time as native speakers. It seems like my vocabulary is disappearing. Yeah, we'll talk about it in this video as well. Can you tell the difference between these two sentences? If I hadn't dodged the ball, it would have hit me in the head, versus if I didn't dodge the ball, it would have hit me. Okay. We're not going to cover like didn't versus haven't in this video, but I think I've covered that in various videos. If you search like did versus have, you should find that on the channel. And then he says, I want to be a translator, and it looks like English and Spanish, I'm guessing, but there are a lot of terms that native use that I don't know, and they speak, yes. So again, if you're trying to be a translator and you want to be prepared for a wide range of English, then you need to be exposed to a wide range of English and make sure you understand it, all right? So hopefully everybody gets that. So this is the first main question I get from people. Let's move on to number 2. So we really want to eliminate any doubt you have, and now we're going to get to like even people who can understand all of the English they hear, so they understand all native English speakers, or they understand teachers very easily. But even if you don't, a lot of people have still trouble understanding a variety of speakers. And so the next question I have, or the next question people ask me is, here we go, and I will write this more clearly here. So why can I understand, E-R-S-T-A-N-D, understand words, but not use them in conversations? Oh, I did say when I speak. All right, so why can I understand words? So this is for the people who can understand a lot of English. Let me put number 2 up there, excuse me. So why can I understand words but not use them when speaking? Now, this is specifically talking about learning individual words and phrases and grammar points where you might learn something, but you forget that specific thing in a conversation. So you're trying to talk, but maybe the word escapes you. Another way of expressing this is, why do I forget my words in conversations, or why do my words disappear, or why do I lose my words? So anything where you would understand other people speaking to you, but you forget to use that, or you can't use it, or you just struggle to maybe find that vocabulary or use the right thing in the right situation in a real conversation, okay? So if this is you, if you understand what I'm saying, you can follow native speakers when they talk. You have a good level of understanding, but you still have a lower level of speaking ability, because maybe individual words and phrases, you don't remember them very well, you can't recall them very well when you speak. This is that kind of question here. So this is for people usually a bit higher level, where they know quite a bit of English, they can understand teachers, they can understand lots of natives, but they wonder, why am I not speaking? Okay, so we're going to talk about the problem of speaking, specifically speaking fluently, in just a moment, but I wanted to talk just about this one first, and I thought I would just share a quick story from last night. So I was at home with my family. I was watching, it was just some TV show with my wife and kids, and in the TV show they were talking about Disneyland. So this is in Tokyo. I think it's Disneyland. I forget. Disneyland in Tokyo, Japan. So they were talking about Disneyland, and it was Disneyland at night, and they were showing what the workers do, or the employees. I think they call them, what do they call them? There's like a special word for them at Disney. It's like performers or something like that. So when you're at Disneyland, the people working there, like they're in the Mickey Mouse costume, that kind of thing. So those people, I think they're called the cast. Oh, I think they're called cast members. Cast members. So if you go to different stores, you might just have an employee working at like a sandwich shop, but at Disney, it's like, whoa, they are cast members, so members of a cast, like a cast in a play, or a cast in some kind of movie or performance. So they want people to think like Mickey Mouse is there. He's like, whoa, I'm Mickey Mouse and performing different things. So he is a cast member, or whoever the person inside the Mickey Mouse suit, if you thought that was a real Mickey Mouse. Anyway, so this is a TV show talking about what these people do after, like what they do kind of after hours. So this is a conversational way, like I gave you in step 1, talking about learning conversational speech. So I'll give you an example of that. So after hours. So this means like after people are working, what's going on at Disneyland. So it's after the park closes, then the customers or the guests are leaving, and what do the people do after hours? So we want to know what happens, and this TV show is going to talk about that. So it's just talking about Disneyland and cast members, and here's some interesting English that's related to this specific question. Now, the show we were watching is all in Japanese, but I was talking with my kids about this in English while we were watching it. So my children know both English and Japanese, and my wife speaks English and Japanese also. And so she said something very interesting about this. She said, oh, we're going to see what happens in the, I'm going to fit this over here, I'll just put it over here, in the backyard. In the backyard. And I was listening to that and I said, wait a minute, like this is correct English, like in the backyard, but for the context it didn't make any sense. I was like, what? In the backyard? What do you mean by that? And she said, you know, like after the workers are just there, the customers are all gone, we get to see what they do, you know, like while nobody is there. And I said, oh, you mean like backstage. We're talking about stage, just like we have the, you know, if we have, imagine a play over here, we've got the stage, and we have the curtains over here on the side, and the performers are up here. So the part of the stage back here, so this is the actual stage, the area around it where people go when they are not on stage, they go off stage or they go backstage. So backstage, usually it's one word, like backstage. Or if you go to see a concert, you might have a backstage pass. So backstage pass, backstage pass. So backstage pass is like a little badge or something that says, oh, I can go backstage and talk to the performers or the musicians or something like that. So she said backyard. A backyard is when you're like, here's your house over here, and then we have the front of the house, and then you've got some backyard. Here's a tree back there in your backyard. So it is the yard. Some people might also have a front yard, but this is the backyard here. So the interesting thing about this is that she knows if I was explaining this and I said, oh, you can go backstage, she would understand that English. But she had trouble using the correct English in this explanation, okay? So in her explanation of like, oh, look, we can see the performers' backyard. I said, oh, I don't think we're going to their house. We're not going to see their backyard. We're going backstage. We get to see what's going on when people are not supposed to be at the park. So when it's closed, what are the workers doing? Another way of expressing this is behind the scenes. So what's going on behind the scenes? What's going on behind the scenes? Well, Esther, look at that. Another fellow Wisconsinite over there, all right? Are people getting the idea here? So if I explain something, I could correctly say, oh, we get to see what's happening backstage. But because my wife was like not really thinking about it, she was just like, oh, she said backyard instead. So this would be incorrect English. I didn't understand exactly what she was saying, so she forgot like that's the thing. So in her mind, I can't really guess like exactly what she was thinking, but this is the kind of mistake you make when you don't really understand the language as well as you think you do. All right, let me say that again. This is the kind of mistake you make when you don't really know the language as well as you think you do. When you understand, oh, it's backstage, like not the front of the stage, not where people are. This is backstage. We're going behind where people actually are, okay? Backstage, like, ooh, I've got tickets to the concert, and we get to go backstage to talk with the performers. Backstage, okay? Does this make sense? So this is an example of when people are listening, it's a much easier thing than trying to speak, because you have to remember the correct words for situations, and you have to understand the vocabulary well enough to feel confident using it. So lots of people, it's really easy to understand because they don't have to think. They're not the one trying to make sure the grammar is correct and they're putting things together correctly. And even in a sentence, even if you don't understand everything, you can understand generally what's happening. So I could explain this to my wife. Look, we get to go with this TV show, we get to go behind the scenes, we get to go backstage and see what's happening. And she would understand that perfectly. She would know exactly what I'm saying. But when it's her turn to speak, and also her English is really good, by the way, I'm just using this as a particular example because it happened yesterday, and I might make similar mistakes in Japanese because there might be some word that I think I know, but I don't really know enough to know it without a doubt. So when you understand, it's like, wait, we're not talking about a backyard, we're talking about backstage. So you want to go backstage and see what's happening behind the scenes, all right? Does everybody get this idea? So when people say, why can I understand words? So why can I understand when other people are speaking to me, but they can't use them? And again, this specific question is usually talking about forgetting individual words and phrases. So there might be some things that you don't forget. Maybe you can say a sentence and you're pretty confident about most of the sentence, but some of it, maybe a word or a grammar point or pronunciation, you're not very confident. You still have some kind of doubt, and that's what stops you from speaking. So it's not having a speaking opportunity, it's not knowing what the word actually means and using it correctly and feeling confident about it, but hopefully you feel confident now. Does everybody understand the difference? Do you feel confident about backyard versus backstage? Raise your hand. Give me like a heart or type something in the comments so I see what's happening over here. Let me check, see if comments are working on the phone. Oh, let's see. I think we're working. All right. Yes, it looks like we are working. All right. So that's the basic idea of when you can understand something but not speak. It just means you have some kind of doubt still. You're not really as prepared as you think you are for the conversation. All right, and another thing I would like to make clear here is that you can know some things without a doubt, and other things you might still have doubts about them. All right, thank you. I'm glad everybody, or at least a few people, are following me here. I really want to make sure you have no doubt, so that's why I take my time to explain things and make sure you understand them. All right, so if you have no doubt, you either have doubt or you have confidence, but you don't have both. You might have like some doubt about something, like I understand something, but I have doubt about using it, then it means you don't have confidence about that thing. But when you eliminate all the doubt, now we've got 100% confidence that we can use something, and you will feel confident about backyard versus backstage. Okay? So that's the second question, and again, it's like people might not say it exactly like this, but this is the kind of question where people can understand some English, but they still struggle to speak. All right? Audio is less encouraging. Well, if I turn my head, I might not be caught by the microphone, but I'll try to speak more directly into it. All right? Let's keep moving though. All right? So we've already covered the first two core questions that people have. Again, the first question is, do you remember? What's the first question? Anybody remember? See if anybody was following this as I erase this over here. So the first question was, why can I understand English teachers, but I have trouble understanding natives, and it could be movies or TV shows or whatever. That's the main thing where if you don't even know the English, then of course you will struggle to understand people. Okay, so it's kind of like the first level of eliminating doubt over here. If nobody ever taught you something, then of course you're going to have trouble speaking. All right, so Sonia says, I can understand you, but I cannot speak like you. Now we're going to talk about that particular issue. All right, so second thing we talked about, This one here is when you can understand people, like you can follow people. Why do I understand you but not natives? Yes, so that was the first thing we talked about. And then the second one is maybe I understand you. I can follow other people when they're speaking, but I can't speak like them. It's usually because you have particular words and phrases that you can't use confidently and fluently. So you could have basically some kind of doubt about whatever the vocabulary you're using, and that's what's going to cause you to struggle to speak. But hopefully you've seen so far that the solution to both of those problems is not to live around native speakers or to try to speak a lot more. It's just to eliminate whatever doubt you have about that particular thing. So if you don't know what people are really saying, then of course you're going to have more trouble when people are in a conversation. So if I'm talking with people in Japanese and they're talking about, I don't know, some high level, I don't know, biology or something, and I don't know the actual vocabulary they're using, of course I will struggle in that conversation. Okay? So if you just don't know the language at all, of course you will struggle. And you could know the language but still have trouble speaking anyway if you have doubt about the vocabulary you know. So you might hear something and recognize it, but you still don't feel confident. You don't really know it well enough to really understand that one. Well, haro, how's it going? Says ukyomalu suisan. And I'll make this my little doubt gauge, my doubt little thing over here. So this is, so we have 0% certainty, 0% assuredness about something, or we have 100% certainty where you feel very confident about understanding things. And so I want you to understand that there are different levels of understanding. It's not like, oh, I understand Drew, so I should be speaking fluently. No, that's not how it works. Understanding me is going to have it's going to give you a little bit of that range of English, but it's only a piece of that puzzle. It's not the whole thing. You still need to listen to lots of different people speaking. And so now we're going to talk about, let me put my blue back up here. Question 3. And so this is for really the highest level of learners who know a lot, they understand a lot of the language, and they're really struggling with, why am I not able to communicate fluently? And I'll talk about the two pieces of that, but that is the question here. So why do I know? We'll just say, how can I know so much English? Now I can't even write the word English over here while I'm talking. English. So how can I know so much English yet not be fluent? F-L-U-E-N-T. So I help people at all 3 levels of this, but this is the highest level for people who know a lot of English but still struggle to speak. And let me just check chat, make sure we're working over here. Axis says, is it a better strategy to start practicing in formal situations since it's easy to understand the language than with normal people in streets, for example? Not necessarily, but I'll talk about how that works here. All right, so let's get into this. So this third question here, this is the main kind of question, or the third kind of question I get from learners, which is, how can I know so much English, or I understand everything you're saying, Drew, or even I understand everything natives are saying, but I'm not able to put my words together fluently and confidently and talk about really anything or have a conversation about anything. I might be nervous talking about some things but not others. This is the actual problem of putting the information together in conversations, okay? So how do you do that? And when I explain to people that the problem is not just listening to a lot of English, it's really eliminating all the doubt. And this I'm gonna put kind of 2 sub problems here. These are the core things that people really struggle with. The first one is just knowing. So knowing, let's just say the right word, so knowing the right word for the situation. So whatever that thing is, people will have doubts about both of these things. So they will have doubts about what is the right word for the situation. And then the other thing is like how to, let's just say, what does say connect? So how do I know the right thing to say for a situation? So the thing that sounds natural, the thing that sounds normal, and then also connecting speech. How can I take these pieces of language, like words and phrases and grammar points, and actually weave them together like I'm doing right now? So I'm speaking fluently, I'm saying the right thing at the right time, and I'm also able to connect my language. All right, so I can think like, what is a way to say something? And again, like there are many ways to do both of these things. So I could, let's say I want to say, I don't know, really hot, for example. So I could say, what is the right word for the situation? Like, wow, it's really hot in here. Or I could say it's extremely hot, or it's a stifling heat over here. Or it's hotter than hell, or it's crazy hot in this room. There are different ways that I could say the right word for the situation or the right phrase for the situation. And then the second part of that is connecting speech, where I'm able to take my words and flow them together dynamically. So remember, in conversations, the tricky thing about practicing for real communication is that it's not like practicing for an instrument or practicing a sport where you're trying to shoot a basketball or something like that, because each conversation is dynamic. It's uncertain. It's you don't really know what people are going to say. It's unpredictable. So we'll talk about kind of how you prepare for that, but these are the main problems that people have. So without them like thinking about it, this is it. Either you have trouble finding the right word for the situation. So you hear something like, oh, I understand what the situation is, but I don't know what feels natural. What might a native say, or what are some different things natives might say? And then I have trouble actually connecting the speech. Okay, so this is the final core thing that people have doubt about. This is usually the biggest one. So people especially this is like the most painful problem, because they understand so much English, but they're still not able to put it together fluently. So before we talk about the solution to this, let me go through chat right quick, make sure I'm up. Let's see, cleaning solution says, what can I do if I have problems speaking about daily life? I think I have a good level about business topics, but not about regular topics. We'll talk about that in just a second. Rich says, I understand what you stated. However, when I converse with somebody, I have doubts because I fear making mistakes and might feel embarrassed. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing we talked about in the second question people have, but then they also have doubts about what's the right thing to say and how can I connect all of these things. So that's the kind of deeper problem people have. So if you know what the vocabulary is and you feel confident that you can remember it in a conversation, but you still have trouble remembering it or even knowing if that is the right word for the situation, there you can see how all of these doubts, it's just a bunch of doubts that stop you from speaking. But if you can eliminate all of those doubts, then the confidence returns, because you can't be doubting and having confidence at the same time. Either you have doubt or you have confidence. Either you really know the language well enough to use it, or you will have doubts and questions in your mind that stop you from speaking. All right? All right, so let's look at this. And Pankowi says, I've been having this problem where I know words, but I can't use them correctly in terms of making generalization sentences out of them. Sometimes I would use a plural form, but I use otherwise. Yeah, so that's kind of talking about problem 2, where you have like misunderstandings, or you have just some kind of doubt about using things correctly. So if I can't remember a word just by myself and in my mind when I'm talking to myself, if I can't remember something, then I'm definitely not going to use it correctly in a conversation either. So it's knowing the vocabulary, feeling confident that you could recall it because you really understand the vocabulary well, like you understand it without a doubt, and you're able to connect that thing and you know that's the right thing for the situation. So if you have all of those things, then you have confidence in speaking fluency. All right, but hopefully, as I repeat again and again, the point here is not to try to practice speaking, it's to eliminate the doubt you have. All right, so this is, I really want to make it clear, like, How do we solve this problem? Let me give you an example. This is actually another story from last night. I thought that this was so entertaining because I was thinking about teaching this lesson, talking about the book and what it's covering. And then I had both of these stories. The first story I just told from my wife, and then this is the second story from my daughter. Now this is an interesting one. So both of these were last night. We're again sitting at the dinner table, and Aria, my older daughter, who's 9 years old, she speaks Japanese and she speaks English, and she said, "Daddy, I know what I want for Christmas." And I said, "Okay, what would you like?" And she said, "Oh, I'll write this, let me write this, see if I can fit that up here. I want a one-wheeled bicycle. I want a one-wheeled bicycle. And at first when I heard that, I thought, like, it's kind of like just a funny idea to think about it. So I want to be very clear about what's happening here. She says, for Christmas, I want a one-wheeled bicycle. What do you think she meant by that? What's a one-wheeled bicycle? Just post that in the chat if you know. I'll give you a second to think about what that word means. Now, it took me a moment to understand what she was trying to say, but it's actually a unicycle. Yes, that's correct. So what she's asking for is, I'll draw a picture of it here, is a kind of little seat, and you got a pole here, and then there's the wheel, and there's some kind of pedal on it, so you sit here, and it's a one-wheel little vehicle like that. But she said, I want a one-wheeled bicycle. And so it took me a minute to think about it, but I said, "Oh, you mean a unicycle, right?" And she said, "Yeah, that's it." So like she had kind of forgotten the word, but here's the interesting thing. She didn't stop, she didn't hesitate in conversation, she just switched the word she was thinking of, but she was just able to say something else. Yeah, you could say like monocycle, but the word is unicycle. Unicycle. And so I said, "Oh yes, you mean a unicycle." Remember, uni means one and cycle means like a circle. So a bicycle is a bicycle. We've got two cycles. That's why we call it a bicycle instead of a unicycle. Now, interesting how the pronunciation for cycle also changes. So we have unicycle, and bicycle. We don't really say bicycle, we say bicycle. It's a little bit easier to blend that together. Bicycle, instead of bicycle. And then we don't say like unicycle. It sounds a little bit weird, unicycle, but she said, a unicycle. So she understood what the word was. She had just forgotten it. Now, what will often happen for a learner in this situation is they will say, "I want a," and then the conversation just ends because they can't think of the exact word to say for something. Now, this happens to natives all the time, and I'm doing it even in these videos, but I do it so quickly you don't really notice it. But the point is, I'm what I call moving like water, where I start saying something, and then I think, okay, this is the way I want to express it, but wait a minute, maybe that's not the best way, or, oh, actually I forgot the specific word I want to use, so instead of going that way, I go this way instead. But I'm able to move like water. It's like there's kind of a rock in my way, and the water just flows around that rock. But lots of learners, they get stuck at that point where they're going and they just think, "Oh no, I forgot that word. That's the only word I know to use for something, so now I can't speak," and the conversation ends. Or people get stuck, or they're just like, I can't remember. So what my daughter did was, interestingly, she couldn't remember the word unicycle, so she just said something different, which helped me understand what she meant. So again, even natives might forget some particular vocabulary, but she's fluent in that she's able to continue speaking simply by switching to different vocabulary. Okay, see what happened there? So she was not able to find the right word for the situation, but she just said something different. All right, so there are many ways that we might express a particular word. There's not only one thing, and typically when people are learning a language, they get one translation of a word, and that's why they think, okay, I have my one way of saying something. I might think like, what are some other ways of expressing this? How about a one-wheeled vehicle? Or what's the name of that little, it's got a seat on it and the wheel, the one wheel under it. Oh, that's a unicycle. So I could explain something even if I forget the actual word for it. All right, so my daughter was able to find a way to express something. So even though I was like, wait a minute, a one-wheel bicycle, like it's like a light dark room or something. It sounds like a contradiction. But so a one-wheel bicycle, after I thought for a moment and understood, oh, that's what she's trying to say. So she was able to explain what she wanted, she had the right words, and she was able to connect the speech without stuttering or hesitating or worrying that it wasn't the exact right thing, okay? So yes, a one wheel plus a bicycle could be like a tricycle. Yeah, so you could express something like that. Like, what's that? It's a vehicle for little kids. It's like a bicycle, but it's got 3 wheels on it. Ah, a tricycle, a tricycle. So that's a tri. So just like we have a tricycle, we can have a triangle. So a triangle has 3 angles on it. A triangle or a tricycle is like this. We got the little seat thing and 2 wheels in the back like that. So a tricycle. All right, so how does she develop this ability? Now, the interesting thing is, like, I don't actually spend a lot of time talking with my kids. They do watch, movies and English TV shows or things like that on YouTube sometimes. But they're not spending a lot of time speaking English with me or even just speaking English during the day. But what they are doing is they're getting lots of naturally varied review. So naturally varied review is what's like, if they see, somebody talking about a tricycle, they might hear the word tricycle and they might hear an explanation about tricycle, or they might hear some different pronunciations of the word, or they might hear different speakers saying it. So let's say they're watching a Peppa Pig. So this is actually a TV show I recommend, Peppa Pig. So this is British English, and even my 5-year-old daughter will say, hey, they pronounce the words wrong. And I say, no, that's British English, it's correct, it's just, it sounds a little bit different from like American English. And even in America, we might have different ways of pronouncing things. So when my kids are listening to this, they might be watching a Peppa Pig episode about a unicycle. And so they'll hear a couple of different characters use the word. The pronunciation is different. Some people might not be speaking so clearly. Some people are a little bit faster. This is the kind of naturally varied review that makes sure they understand the word and when they can use it. So they're learning the right way to express things, and they're learning examples of how to connect that speech. So you get this not by you speaking, it's by listening to examples of other people speaking. So not just me, like listening to other people, like me talking with someone or some characters talking in a movie. You need to see all of those examples that teach you the right way to express things. So this is the secret, the thing that most people are missing, and it's what I call actually the strangest fluency secret, because you don't get fluent by just repeating things to yourself. You actually get fluent as you see lots of natives showing you exactly how to say things in different ways. Okay, let me say that again. So what people think they need is to speak a lot, but lots of people have been speaking a lot for a long time and they still don't feel very confident and fluent. The reason is because they still have doubt. So they're still using, whatever they think, like, I don't know, I try to say something, but I don't really feel confident. I can understand other people when they talk to me, but I'm still not feeling very confident myself. So even if they live with natives, they could be married to a native and still make, mistakes, kind of like the mistake I talked about in the last example with my wife. But those are the kinds of things where you just don't know the vocabulary as well as you think you do, And the reason is because you're not getting enough examples of natives actually talking about those things and showing you how to do that. So you can see how in a regular language lesson, like I gave that example before about the rainbow, where people have different kinds of English that they're learning than the regular ways that people might speak. So if you're only listening to slow, clear speech, but you're not listening to lots of examples of people speaking faster or not speaking so clearly or not using the typical textbook English that you might hear, just like I gave the example before about y'all want some pie. Y'all want some pie? Y'all want some pie? Y'all want some pie? So do you all, or would you like some pie? You might hear that in a textbook, but in a real example, someone with a southern accent says, y'all want some pie? And maybe you don't understand what they're saying, or you couldn't express it like they did, okay? So the difference here, it's not like I'm speaking to my kids and they spend all their time developing fluency by speaking. They're actually developing fluency by seeing examples of different natives communicating, but they're doing it in a structured way, all right? So what happens with a lot of learners, they make this mistake of having, I'm gonna draw this, oh, look at this, we have a pretty chaotic looking board here. Let me erase some of this. So people will often tell me, but Drew, I do listen to native English and I do watch TV shows and let's see here. And they think they should be fluent, but they're still not fluent. And so what's happening is they're not learning this content in a structured way. The structured part is really important here. Having native content is great, but it's not going to help you if you're learning it in like an unstructured way. And I'm going to make this very simple for you. Can people see the red marker? Okay, I think they can, hopefully. Maybe I'll use black for this example over here. All right, so if you are at this stage where you can understand a lot of English, and you can understand me, and even if you understand every native, and you don't have any trouble understanding, like, even people in movies or TV shows, you can understand those things, but you still can't speak, then it's probably because you're not erasing all the doubt. You still have doubts about how to connect things or what's the right word for the situation. And those are actually things that don't come from you speaking. They come from you seeing other people speaking and how they make those connections. That's how you learn to do that. And as you see more examples, then you get to start doing that as well. So I might learn something in Japanese and hear, oh, look at that. Here's a word that people used, or a situation or some expression. And now I see I could also use that in a different situation. So as I feel more confident, as I eliminate doubt about how to learn things or what might be the right thing for a situation, that's when I start speaking. So what a lot of people typically do, all right, so people can see the red on the, I think some people maybe are color blind, so they can't see certain colors, and I don't know if which color is best. I think maybe green is worse for that. Anyway, so what often happens, this is how people are getting native content. It's like this. And I'm having these little circles over here, and these circles represent random pieces of native content. So this one here is like maybe like a TV show about, I don't know, sports or whatever. And then this is a book about flowers. And then this is another thing about some unrelated thing. We'll just put podcast up here. And then there might be just other random things like that. So here's an English lesson video. I'm gonna not draw that very well, but it's supposed to say English lesson. I want to be quick. So an English lesson video and other things like that. So you are listening to or watching or reading random content. Here's a blog post on a website. Here's some radio program, okay? So this is what people are typically doing to learn. They're like, ooh, I want to read this thing or watch this thing. And it's native content, but the problem with it is that each of these individual pieces will usually have like some part of it that you don't understand. So maybe like I can follow some of this. I don't understand exactly all the words, but I get the general idea. I can watch a movie or read a book or whatever, but maybe I don't understand everything. So because you're not strategically learning, you're going to have more trouble trying to remember this information, and then actually, just like we talked about, knowing what's the correct thing for the situation, and then also being able to connect these different things. So those 2 points are very important. I could really talk about them separately, but it's really linked, because you have, if you have like the pieces of them, how do I know what's correct for a situation? So if something like falls on my head, what do I say? Like in English, we would say ouch or damn, or, you know, depending on how painful it is for us. If I'm speaking Japanese, I might say like ita, ita, ouch. So in one language, or like, what do I say when I stretch? If you watch little kids, so little Japanese kids, they get up, they stretch, they're like, yes. Like that's a Japanese thing. American kids don't say that. They say like, yeah, you know, they get up and say something different. So if you watch them, little kids are learning what to say, even little grunts and sounds like that, like yush, like people say that. It's not like an actual word for the situation. It's just kind of, it's just stretching. But little kids see that and they think, oh, in this situation, this is what I say. So they're connecting the situation with the vocabulary, rather than trying to learn a translation of something and make that connection, okay? So when you're learning like this is a typical way people are learning, and that's why they get a very wide range of content, but they don't know it very well, so they don't feel very confident speaking about it. Does anyone have that problem? Where you know lots of information, you might have information about business or, you know, whatever your hobbies or something like that, but you still don't feel very confident speaking about it. This is usually the problem. Now, how do we do this strategically? What we want to do is, again, so this is just the typical way people might learn things, but instead, when we want to get naturally varied review, we want to make sure we eliminate all of the doubt by exploring things or listening to things or watching things in different ways. All right, so we want to take the same kind of content and then learn it in slightly different ways to make sure we really understand that and eliminate any doubt about what do you say for this particular situation, or what are some different things you might say, and then how to connect things. So seeing how people actually connect those words teaches you how to do that. You have to see how the language is connected, not just learning a bunch of random words and phrases. Okay, so we don't want to just watch a bunch of random content. We want to get naturally varied review. So very simply, here's how this might work for whatever. I'll take a particular topic like motorcycles. So I want to learn about motorcycles. I watch a YouTube video about motorcycles. So here's like a, what does it say, YT video about motorcycles. Now, I might also read a blog post about motorcycles. So here's like a blog post. Or I'm listening to a radio show about, so radio, R-A-D-I-O. I cannot write and talk at the same time. R-A-D-I-O, a radio show about motorcycles. Or maybe I actually like go on a motorcycle trip with a friend of mine and we're talking about motorcycles, and I'm hearing a lot of this vocabulary. He's describing different parts of the motorcycle and how they work together and what they do. As I'm hearing all these things, some vocabulary I'm going to hear a lot. Okay, so like people are using the word motorcycle and various motorcycle parts. If I hear that, I'm going to hear that, and I'm going to hear different ways that people might use this. Or I might even hear different ways of saying the word motorcycle. So we have a motorcycle. Get that word cycle a lot. So a motorcycle, or I might hear like a chopper or a bike. So people will tell me different ways of describing that. So some guy is saying, yeah, I got a new bike today, and I know they were out shopping for a motorcycle, so I hear, oh, look, you can use the word bike when you're talking about a motorcycle. Here I'm naturally learning just by getting this variation here that, look at that, I can actually have a conversation and use motorcycle or bike at the same time. Or motorbike, another example. You can combine them together. You can have a motorcycle, motorbike, and you could even have like specific names like a Harley or a Hog or something, even depending on particular brands or models of motorcycle. Okay? But the point is, I'm seeing, like I gave those examples before, about different ways of expressing things. So what are various ways I might describe motorcycle? So the situation is this, like, this physical object, and well, this looks more like a bicycle, but just imagine this is a motorcycle here. Yeah, it kind of looks like a motorcycle, I guess. So you're looking at this thing and it's like, oh, look at that. I could say motorbike, motorcycle, a chopper, a bike, whatever. I could express that in lots of different ways. And I'm also seeing how people describe this in different ways. So I'm not just learning individual vocabulary, I'm seeing how people connect that vocabulary in sentences. If I watch a bunch of different people or listen to them or read people talking about motorcycles, I'm going to become fluent about talking about motorcycles. Okay? And not only will I learn to get fluent talking about motorcycles, I will also use that to talk about other vehicles or even other things that are not related to that. So if someone says, I have been riding for a long time, I think, oh, okay, like they have been riding. So I can take that same grammar point and think, oh, I have been teaching, or I have been playing, or I have been doing, or I have been something like that. But I understood the grammar in context. I have been riding motorcycles, or I have been racing motorcycles for many years. Okay, so I learned that grammar point and I understand, oh, like now that's a thing I can use to talk about anything for any experience I've had or how long I've been doing something. But you see how this works? Your brain begins making these connections and seeing like, wow, some things are used a lot. Maybe some things are used less frequently, but you would still learn them. Some things might be specific for, I don't know, like motorcycle parts, but you're not talking about a motorcycle travel or something like that. But you can see how by structuring this, being systematic with how we're learning, we're actually getting lots of great examples, but it's not repetitive. When you're just learning something, like if you try to learn this way, then people will just say, well, repeat the TV show again. Like I'm just gonna watch the TV show again, and lots of people are not going to do that because it's boring. Your brain is naturally looking for new information. It always wants to know what's new. It's looking for novel, new, what's exciting, what have I not seen before. So it's looking for new information, and that's why it's so difficult for people to review. Typically, if you read a book, you might read a book, like if you read a novel, let's say that's 200 pages, you're probably not going to reread that novel right after you're done. Like nobody does that because it's boring. You already know the story. You don't want to waste time to go back and do it again. Now, it's probably a good idea if you read a novel once and then go back and read it again, you will probably notice some things that you did not see the first time. So that kind of review is helpful. Reviewing through repetition is useful, but most people won't do it because it's boring. Okay? So when you're looking at something like, if I like motorcycles, if I'm interested in that, I will read a blog post about my motorcycles. I will watch a video. I might watch a movie about that, like a movie like Easy Rider. So let me put like Easy Rider. So it's a movie about like a motorcycle trip. Or I could watch movies about, I don't know, anything related to that. But this works even better if I'm interested in this particular thing. But notice the strategy here, where we're getting naturally varied review. It's not just repetition. We're hearing maybe the same word, but it's a different person saying it, or the accent is different, or the speed is different. But it helps us understand by connecting all of these things. It's all of this together. It's the whole system together that really locks that information in your mind so that you feel confident, you remember the information, and notice something else. I'm not speaking right now, okay? As I'm doing all this, I'm developing fluency even before I say a word, all right? So the strategy is, how do we know the information? How do we eliminate the doubt before we speak? If you can do that, then you will feel very confident. I promise you, if you have a conversation tomorrow, you know you're going to be talking about whatever, some friends are meeting to talk about, I don't know, planning a road trip or something. If you spend your time getting a bunch of content before that, you will feel very confident when you get into that conversation, even before you speak, okay? So The strangest fluency secret is you can become fluent before you speak and actually prepare simply by getting lots of content and seeing natives talk about doing things in different ways, or they get to understand things, or you get to hear different pronunciations, see different people speaking about this. Is this exciting? Does everybody get this now? So the typical thing people think about doing is, I need to speak to develop fluency. But this shows us that while you could do that, it's actually a lot more difficult than just doing it the easy way and relaxing and getting lots of varied input. And again, this is not just about like comprehensible input where I understand something. I want to eliminate doubt. I can understand something, but if I still feel uncertain about it, then I'm missing the bigger picture here. I need to eliminate, actually get to 100% about individual words and phrases, and how do I feel about making sure these things can connect easily in conversations. So if I don't see examples of other people speaking, it will be much more difficult for me just to take random words and know how to fit them together. It's by seeing other people speak and actually seeing how they make these connections, and not just one person. You see lots of different people. You see how people have it written, or how it's maybe spoken on the radio, or you get to watch some examples and see people doing things in a video. This is why we organize Fluent for Life the way we do, because we want people to get naturally varied review. It's designed to actually work with your brain instead of just taking some content and then you're not going to really want to review it because it's boring. You read that book already, you just finished that book. Why are you going to read it again? Nobody does that, all right? Now maybe you might try to force yourself to do it, but your brain is going to be a little bit angry if you do, all right? So it is possible to do that, but it's much easier if we can trick our brains into getting that new information by making the information feel new. And it feels new with naturally varied review in that way. All right? Hopefully this is making sense. I'll make one last point here about conversations. I'm certainly saying if you get into conversations, that's great. The goal is to be able to speak with people, but I don't want you to have to feel that you're forced to do that, that you really have to speak first and then get fluent. It's actually the opposite. That's why I call it the strangest fluency secret, because everybody assumes you have to speak to become fluent. But if that were possible, you could just sit and talk to yourself and then you would become fluent, right? But instead, you actually just see lots of examples of how other people speak, and that teaches you how to make these connections. And as you do that, you can make your own connections. You get to connect things like you learn something in one situation and you use it fluently in another thing. You say the right thing at the right time, or you use language in an interesting way, like my kids do that all the time, just like Aria was talking about a one-wheeled bicycle. So she knew how to continue talking. She was speaking fluently, and she just used a different way of expressing something because she forgot the actual word for something. So it's okay if you forget. Natives forget things all the time. That's a perfect example of that. But they're able to continue speaking because they've seen examples of other ways of doing things, and she's like, wait a minute, what's like, she knows like a one-legged dog or a three-legged something or whatever, and oh, this is just a one-legged or one-wheeled bicycle. She understood the pattern because she'd seen lots of examples of that. So in a conversation, usually what's happening is that you are trying to say things to other people, but you could actually just, like most of the information, most of the improvement is coming from the other things that people say to you. So as you learn, oh, that's a new way I could say something, that's some new vocabulary, and you understand it in context, all in English, rather than trying to use your native language and understand things that way. All right? Is this exciting? Let me know if I'm just talking to myself over here. But this is how I got fluent in Japanese. This is how I get my kids fluent in English and Japanese. If I'm speaking, I speak like both of those languages with them. But this is how we do it. And I make sure, because I don't have a lot of time with my kids, that this is how I'm going to teach them. So I want to make sure they're getting structured, naturally varied review. So they're learning something and getting it from a lot of different ways. If I know we're going to like talk about Halloween, we might read some different Halloween books, watch a different Halloween TV show or something like that, but they're getting all of this naturally varied review. Some things they may remember better than others, and that's okay, but in general, they will naturally learn how to be good speakers because they're seeing all these examples or hearing examples or reading examples or whatever. And the proof is in people being able to speak. That's how we learn how to do it. So in your native language, this is how you got fluent. It's the same way you will get fluent in English. Of course, you could try to continue doing this if this is what most people, if you are doing this or you're just watching random content without getting much review and you still don't really feel 100% confident that you understand everything, or you watch something but you couldn't also explain that the same way the person did, then you're not getting enough review of that thing. And it's just more boring to try to get review of the exact same thing in the same way. So again, like even like in Fluent for Life, you might watch a video and then listen to that same content or write it or read it as well. And as you do that, your brain is going to think in a slightly different way. It will feel like, oh, this is kind of new information. I'm happy to accept this and review it in a slightly different way. But this is how you're going to get fluent, and you can become fluent before you speak, okay? So you don't need to spend a lot of time, like when people ask me, like, what is the ultimate strategy here? The strategy is just eliminating doubt. Okay, that's it. That's the only thing you have to think about. It's not just getting, when people talk about comprehensible input, they kind of stop at this level. They're like, oh, I need to get comprehensible input. I listened to a podcast about something and I understand that information. Okay, great. But did you destroy the doubt? Are you still uncertain? Could you listen to a podcast and then go talk about that same stuff in the podcast as well? If you can't, either watch it again or listen to it again, or try to get some naturally varied review. So if I'm listening to a podcast about gardening, I should also watch a TV show about gardening, or listen to, just some people in real life, go to the gardening store and watch people talk about gardening. Okay? So that's how this works. All right, let me go back and check. Looks like we've been going for 85 minutes. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Okay, hello teacher. I'm studying Japanese and English these days, and it's hard because the structures of the two are different. Yes, but if you can understand how they work by connecting Japanese with situations and connecting English with situations, it's easier to do that. I don't really recommend people try to learn two languages at the same time, but it's possible. Just like you would go to school and you learn math and science and other things at the same time. Like, languages are similar, but you can still kind of learn them. Like, I could even be learning about, like if I'm trying to learn two different languages at the same time, I would probably be watching content about a particular thing in Japanese and then maybe watch something different in English. Like that could be one way to separate that in your mind if you're having any issue with that. Which kind of language English you're speaking now? So I speak I speak American English. Jenny says, hi from Bangkok. I'm on the motorbike watching your video. Nice. Just like you make a video on making coffee and you show different videos to show they were using the same words but could make a distinction. Yes, so that was an example of naturally varied review. It's one kind of example. So the naturally varied review is it's like a science experiment where you want to, like I might have, let's say, I want to find out, I have a kind of plant and I want to know, does that fit over here? Okay. So I have 3 different seeds and one has sunlight and one has sunlight and water and one has like no sunlight or water, something like that. I want to see what happens to the plant. So the sunlight one, maybe it grows a little bit, sunlight and water really grows very well, and nothing, it doesn't do anything. So here, I'm trying to compare these different things, and it's the comparison that helps me understand what was the thing that worked or did not work. So it works the same way when you're trying to teach your brain language. You don't just get one example or get a list of things that you're trying to remember. You see how it's used. We learn by watching other people or by listening to other people, and that's how you learn the language. Good question, though. Let's see. Axis says, I think in naturally varied review situations, the brain starts to focus more on the details. Yes, so the brain will naturally do that because the brain likes new information and it's trying to figure out what's different between these things, and it works even better if it's something you're interested in. So if you try to watch videos about motorcycles and you don't care about motorcycles, that's probably not a good thing to do. This is why in Fluent for Life, you get to pick the topics you're learning about, because you don't want to just I'm not going to force you to learn about Pokemon if you don't care about Pokemon. Now, interesting thing is you could watch some things about motorcycles and then you would learn some useful vocabulary that could be used elsewhere. But you don't necessarily have to do that. So it's a good thing to get various information to make sure you really understand it and want to learn that thing, especially if you're interested in it. All right, Elder, nice to see you there. And how did you eliminate the doubts while learning Japanese? So I just did the same thing in Japanese. If there's a doubt I have about something, I need to attack that doubt. I need to find out if it's a grammar problem or a vocabulary problem or something. And I might think, at first when I hear something, I don't really understand it very well. So I should find someone who can explain it to me, okay, now I hear something, let's say like near my house, I think I've told this story, there's an announcement for the toilet, like, oh, there's a toilet over here, and for a long time I couldn't understand the Japanese that was being used for that. It was like, it wasn't clear for me. I couldn't remember or understand what it was. So I asked my wife, and they were saying, like tamokteki, and I was like, that's what they're saying? It like doesn't sound like that at all, or maybe my hearing is just bad. But once I understood that, then I could hear it clearly. There's an interesting, just related to this, it's like a science experiment about people passing a basketball around a room, and you ask someone, hey, I want you to count the number of times the basketball gets passed around the room. So you have a group of people walking around a room and passing this basketball to each other. And then at the end, we're going to see, so you're trying to count the number of times that the basketball moves. And at the end, we'll ask you how many times they pass the ball and see if you got it right. So they walk around the room for a little bit and people pass the basketball and they say how many times did they pass the ball? And usually people are correct, like they passed it 10 times. And then they say, well, did you also see the gorilla? Did you also see the gorilla? And the person is like, what? What do you mean, what gorilla? And like the interesting thing is in this experiment, the point is the experiment is just to show that people can focus on a particular thing if that's what they're doing. And then they block out additional information. So in the experiment, they actually have a person with a gorilla suit on walking through that group of people. And so the gorilla walks by and he's like, oh, hello. And he actually doesn't say anything, but he's waving like that and he walks through. And so the person's really surprised that they didn't notice that at all. You can watch this on YouTube. Just look up like gorilla basketball experiment or something. But it's an interesting part about our psychology, about how we focus on particular things like that. Anyway, so like when I'm trying to focus on particular things, like I want to watch something and then I want to review it again because I know my mind is probably going to miss certain things anyway. But it's just more boring to review it if I'm just watching the exact same thing again and again. I can do that, and sometimes I do, but the naturally varied review part is much better for me eliminating any doubts I have about Japanese. So I could, like that, the toilet example, it's like you can't really hear or follow what you don't understand or what you can't pay attention to. So you really need more examples, and usually in a different way rather than just hearing something again and again. Let's see, and says, Emma Spaniel says, I'm with you on that. People often think they will learn faster jumping from one word to the other without spending enough time with one thing until it's engraved in your mind. Yes, so you really want to make sure you understand things, and that's why the typical way that people get comprehensible input is like, yes, I understood that, but did I eliminate the doubt? Okay. So we don't want you to just understand lots of information. We want you to understand well enough that you have no doubt using something. Do you think learning synonyms helps? Yes, so synonyms is another example of that. Like in this case, I've got, motorcycle or chopper or bike. Those are other ways of expressing the same thing. So natives will, like if you watch when somebody is really scared, what do they say? You will get lots of different examples of that, just like that. Watch that coffee video I made, how to make espresso. That's a video on my channel. Just search espresso and you will see that same thing. So you will see synonyms or different ways of describing that same thing. So you will learn those naturally as you see different natives doing the same thing. Britt says, Drew, you speak as if the brain is separate from the self. I don't think so. Well, I mean, I don't treat it that way. It's more like, this is how my hand works. I can talk about my hand like I talk about, you know, the brain and what I'm interested in. But I don't like, I don't know. I don't think about my hand as like a separate entity, but we can talk about it that way just to make sure, like, my hand is able to bend this way, but I can't bend my fingers back like that. So there's certain things that I'm good at doing or I naturally would do, but there's other things that I should probably not force myself to try to do because it's not what it would naturally want to. Pepe says, your explanation is very enlightening. It will help me a lot, I think. Glad to hear it. It is very important. Rich our vocabulary. You would say enrich, E-N-R-I-C-H. I love using my owner works. Let's see. And Annette says, oh, Drew, you didn't read my message, so I think it's great that Esther and I know each other and that she knew your videos. I think that's so great. Oh, wow. Okay. So you know, you like knew each other independently. You should start like a video club over there. You can talk with each other. Let's see, where are a podcast? What is her name? I don't know what you're talking about. Flavio says, hi from Brazil. I am no sure, but the audio is a bit low. I think the audio is fine. What does read into mean? Like to read into something? It means typically if I see a girl that I like, as an example, and she kind of smiled at me, I might read into that smile, like all kinds of things, like, ooh, maybe she really likes me, or like, what did that smile mean? Maybe she doesn't like me and she's just being polite. And I start thinking and I create all these stories in my mind when maybe she was just smiling at someone behind me. I don't know. But anyway, that's when we like read into something. It's us trying to put some kind of information or narrative or story onto something when it might not necessarily be true. I'm like reading into something too much. Property investment says, it sounds also weak on my end. I'm from the Philippines. Thanks for all the information. It would be help as a lot of Filipino virtual assistants. Glad to hear it. Wow, feels like we get these masterclasses for free from the owner himself. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So basically what I do is help people get fluent this way in Fluent for Life, and you can either join the program or just use the strategy and get fluent yourself. So this is how I got fluent and continue to get fluent and learn new things in Japanese. Obviously the problem is if I don't have someone to teach me things, and I have to spend my time organizing the information or trying to understand what things mean, and that wastes a lot of time. So I often explain to people the moment of learning. A good lesson should be able to give you those moments, like what I call aha moments, very quickly. So if you're in a lesson and it's like, ooh, I understood something, and all these aha moments, if you can do that very quickly, you can get fluent much faster and in a much shorter period of time. But if I have to spend time like finding the lesson and organizing things, and maybe I don't really understand so much, I'm wasting a lot of time. And in my case, it's because I haven't found anyone to teach Japanese the way I do. So I have to just kind of discover these things on my own. But I don't know, we don't provide one-to-one training in Fluent for Life. That would probably be maybe too expensive for people, but it's also less useful than just getting lots of varied examples of things. So for me, learning Japanese, hearing only one person say something is helpful, but I would rather hear 10 different people say something to me. And that's a lot harder to get a lesson about. You will never find a lesson where it's like one teacher or like 10 teachers and one student. You know, it's the opposite of what most people think they need. So it's like it should be one student and 20 different teachers. That's how you get fluent fast. So if you can get lots of different examples from different people, and this is what we do in Fluent for Life, we've taken away all this extra wasted time because all the content is just waiting for you. So it is possible to do it by yourself. You can do this. This is how I got fluent in Japanese, but I really wish I had someone to just prepare all this for me. That would be great. So I don't have that, but I'm able to still kind of create these things, and it just gets me a little bit, it gets me results, but it's slower than if I had someone to help me. But because I understand that, I'm happy to provide something like that for English learners, and that's what we do in Fluent for Life. So if you'd like to learn more about the program and get help learning to get fluent much faster, you can click on the link in the description below this video. But when I release the book, it will go into more detail about these things, but this is the general idea. Remember, the reason people are are having trouble speaking, it's not because they need to like spend more time speaking, or because they don't live in an English speaking country, or they're not married to a native English speaker. They just have doubt about the vocabulary or the grammar or the pronunciation, whatever that is. So if you can eliminate the doubt, you will feel confident. It's just like you have one or the other. Either you feel confident or you do not. But if you can eliminate the doubt, you will become a much more confident speaker, guaranteed. All right, we should end the video though. Looks like we got to the end of that though. Let's see, did I miss anybody? We even met. She lives in the same city. Wow, fantastic. Look at that, bringing people together. This time I have enough money to buy a Fluent Flyer, but no card was working. I've tried other people's cards as well. That's weird. Send us a mail if you have trouble with that, but you can also use PayPal, but should be working. Elder says, yep, Gorilla was a funny way, understanding how the brain concentrated on the task. By the way, I have a Honda Shadow. I'm guessing that's a motorcycle. I don't know anything about bikes or cars really for that matter, but that sounds very cool. And Japanese one, I'm guessing. Axis says, this is a sentence with vocab I learned from your latest video. I can make my way through with naturally reviewed situation to anticipate the unpredictable. Thank you. Yes, that's quite a complicated sentence as well. But yes, the idea is to prepare for and to anticipate the unpredictable, and that's what this allows you to do. So my daughter she doesn't know I'm going to ask her anything. I say, oh, what did you do in school today? And she's talking about making a Christmas card, and she has no idea. She's not prepared for that, but she's able to respond fluently because she's seen lots of good examples and knows how to change things and move like water as she speaks. So it really is a fantastic process, and you can do these things by yourself. You don't have to wait for anyone to speak with or use any special techniques. It's just seeing lots of examples of other people speaking to show you how to do it. And I promise you, if you do it in a strategic way, you will get fluent even faster. All right? All right, let's answer these final questions, and then we'll be done for today. Rock says, my TOEFL score is 41. I feel suck. Well, you would say I suck in this example, or I feel bad. But I'm sorry to hear that. Think about the specific things you need to focus on, and then get that review. Akira Jean says, hey Drew. Akira Jean from The Simpsons there. Rocky, arigato, glad to hear it. And Love says, in a video I saw your father saying, I have them recorded their name. Can we also say, I get them to record their name? Yes, that's another way to say it. Very good. So again, that's an example of how different people could say the right thing for the situation. And there are always multiple ways to do that. And when you know multiple ways of saying things, you don't get stuck in conversations. It's pretty interesting how that works. All right, cleaning solutions again. Drew, let's see, Drew, do you have a test in Fluent for Life to know your level? We don't really have a test, but the way it works for people knowing if you're learning with the program is you can start. So the advice I give to people is you choose a lesson set and then start watching the masterclass video. And then if you can understand that and not just understand it, but you actually feel confident you could say all that, that's great. But usually people cannot do that. So you're following natives, having a conversation. There's lots of vocabulary you probably don't know. So you watch the conversation first, and then you go back and go through the lesson set. And then when you get to the conversation again, you will feel a lot more confident because, look at that, a lot of that doubt is destroyed. So any questions you still have, we can help you with those in the comments, but that's how the program works. So you don't have to feel like you know everything, but that's how you would know about checking your level. So the ability of the program doesn't get infinitely difficult. It just teaches you to talk about different things, and it shows you how to make connections across these different things. So you might be talking about work, or you're talking about, I don't know, some particular business meeting or situation, but you see how that's also useful, that vocabulary, for talking about relationships. So even like if you go through some kind of dating and marriage lesson set, then you talk about business or something after that, you see how these things are connected. So you get to learn with the things you're most interested in, and then that's what's going to get you fluent. But it's basically all at the same level, because at some point, like when you're learning the language, it's like a tree, and it just kind of goes out from there. So if you know all this stuff down here on the trunk, like basic vocabulary and grammar that's used in a lot of different things, then you start learning the more specific vocabulary for individual things. So like advanced biology will have things that are only used for advanced biology. But there will also be some vocabulary that you find in other things like that. So the language doesn't get infinitely difficult, it's just talking about different subjects. So it doesn't matter where you start, you could start here and then jump over here like that. It's all basically at the same level. Let's see, I love this master class, glad to hear it. Let's see, how should I get from intermediate to advanced level in English language? Like this. That's exactly what we do in Fluent for Life. That's the whole point. Thanks to God, because you can in Japan, and we all Asian can follow your class without any issue of different time. I'm a single father for 3 young kids. Look at that. In Malaysia, yes, so we get people from all over the place who can watch these videos, and even if you don't watch them live, you can still catch the replays. Well, good well, glad to hear it. All right, well, I think that's the end of this video, but hopefully this makes sense. I recommend you go back and watch it again. It might be boring for you because I know people don't want to review in that way, but especially if you joined us late, do go back. This answers every question. It's really the 3 core questions people have about not understanding things, not really feeling confident about their vocabulary, and then not feeling confident about actual communication. So if you want to make sure you understand all of these things, the important lesson, the whole idea here is that you eliminate doubt as you understand the language better. That's not how you try to you have to go out and speak or get married to someone and all these other things people think they need. Lots of people get those things and still aren't fluent. So the lesson is understand things, get the doubt out of there, remove the doubt, get rid of the doubt, and that's what's going to help you feel a lot more confident and fluent. All right, so is this live streaming? Yes, until about 5 seconds when I shut it down. But if you would like to learn more about all this, you can click on the links in the description. Also, Frederick is down there too. I didn't really speak about that, but the same principles apply when you're learning Frederick. So people who are playing with that, you will get a good example of that same naturally varied review by seeing the same or different images with the same vocabulary and then seeing the examples used in different ways. All right, have a fantastic day. Click on the links if you'd like to learn more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.